All right, guys. So again, that URL that Jeff and I talked about in the webinar is artofworkbook.com/writer. You can check that out for that awesome stuff that Jeff is offering. Now, we're going to get right into some of the questions that we didn't get to cover in the webinar today. The first one is we're going to kind of go back in the direction of the transition kind of that you made from full-time day job to full-time writing. And so Sylvian Stoltzman and numerous others asked the same question, which is, what is the smoothest way to step away from my day job and move into full-time writing?
So this is, kind of the idea of building a bridge. I think the smoothest way to do it is to, kind of do it on the side as time allows and, as you have opportunity to do so. What that looks like is twofold. First, you want to try to find ways to practice your calling, your craft, at work in some way. And sometimes it requires a little bit of an internal pivot. For me, what that meant was transitioning out of the marketing department and moving into the communications department. Marketing was great, but I wasn't getting to write a lot, which is what I wanted to spend more of my time doing. I wasn't ready to do that full time. And so I went to my boss. I said, hey, I'm learning all this stuff about social media and online writing. How about I start a communications team for you? And it was really, we cooperatively kind of came to this understanding. How about I do that? And this will give me an opportunity to use all the stuff that I'm learning personally and apply to the position. That's not always available, but I've talked to many friends who've done that, especially in a corporate setting where you can move from one department to the other, learn some new skills that you can acquire over time to use outside the job. The second thing that you need to be doing, regardless of whether or not you have an opportunity to do that, is be building your thing on the side. And a really practical way to do that, I think, is to begin by trying to replace lump sum income and then recurring income. So recurring income is, try to replace part of your monthly salary, whatever your living costs are. So if in my case, I was trying to replace my salary and my wife's salary. So I was really going for 50% of our household income monthly. That was one of the first goals. The lump sum goal was trying to save up 3 to 6 months in savings. And if you're a little bit more, aggressive, 3 months is probably okay and you're going to go after it and you're comfortable with risk. If you're a little bit less comfortable with risk, 6 months of savings in the bank account is good. To me, that's a wise transition. You've got money in the bank. You've got some revenue through whatever you're doing that's coming in on a consistent basis so that when or if that money in the bank runs out, you're not, up the river without a paddle. And then, if you can, try to use the byproduct, the stuff that you're doing in your job, try to leverage that opportunity to help you become better and better at what you're doing, so that you can eventually turn pro. And you're not just wasting all this time at your day job. I think that is the ideal scenario. But, you're going to have to find ways to work with whatever system you're in to try to, get as close to that as you can.
So the next question I have, Jeff, is how long are we going to make people wait before we announce a winner?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
What are we giving away today?
Yeah, great question. I probably didn't, blaze through that a little quickly. So we are giving away 2 courses. So if you go to artofworkbook.com/writer, you're going to see that we basically have 3 different tracks that you can follow. Or different packages that you have on the writing track. The first package is you get the Art of Work course, which is really about how to go from dream to launch, how to find out what you're meant to do, how to practice the necessary skills, and then eventually launch out into it. Really kind of like deeper level stuff, next level stuff compared to the book. You're going to get that plus a $200 blogging course called Intentional Blog, which is a super fun course that I put together over a year ago. It's everything that you need to know about launching a blog, how to set it up, how to get an email list, what to put on your about page, what your first 5 blog posts should be, what kind of emails you should be sending out. If you struggle with using WordPress, which is the content management system that I recommend, all of that is in that. That's the Art of Work Blogger. The Art of Work Writer is that, plus some group coaching, plus the Premium Tribe Writers course, which is my signature product. It is the course about how to turn pro as a writer, how to take your blog, build an audience, get published, and share your words with the world, and eventually get paid for your passion. And you get all this bonus stuff with the premium level. Then that's called the Art of Work Writer package. Then the last one is called the Art of Work Master package. It's all that stuff that I already mentioned, plus you're going to get 2 hours of one-on-one coaching with me. I think the Art of Work Blogger course is great for people who are starting out, trying to get started with blogging, writing. They just want to kind of put their words out there and start building an audience. The Art of Work Writer course is great if you have a blog or you're ready to kind of take that next step and you really want to get published and get more serious about writing. Plus, it's got that, it's got all that blogger stuff in there as well, so you're not missing out on anything. It's really, the best deal. And then the master level is for you're ready to go pro. I don't do really any coaching outside of courses like this. This is an opportunity for us to get some one-on-one time together to not just talk about anything, but to craft a plan that'll get you to where you want to go. Matt, I'm not even going to bother with the first level. That's a great value, but I want us to give away an Art of Work Writer course, which is a $1,400 value. And we're selling that for $797 just this week. And then the Art of Work Master, which is a $2,900 value that we're selling for $1,497. Let's give away one of each of those.
So you think maybe we should do one of those now, maybe?
Sure, let's do one now.
All right, well, it's good because I have a winner. And while you and I are recording, I literally have one of my assistants in the background. It's like a gerbil and a gerbil wheel. I don't know, a hamster and a hamster wheel. And they're picking the winners. They're putting all these into a spreadsheet and then using random.org. So this is entirely random. It's not just going to be like the winners' names are not going to be Jeff and Matt, I promise you, unless there is a Jeff out there who was watching. But the first winner is from Edinburgh, Scotland. And I did pronounce that right. It's not Edinburgh, it's Edinburgh. And it's Dennis J. Coughlin. So Dennis, when you are listening to this, stop what you're doing, and then come back and finish, of course. But stop what you're doing. Email me at matt@mattmcwilliams.com, and I will get that. I'll get all the information. Writer, and we're going to give away the other one here at the very end. So keep listening for that. But Dennis, congratulations. Let's jump back into. We're going to stay for just a moment in this. It's kind of getting started phase. So many of the people asked about, really my biggest struggle is mindset and limiting beliefs. How do you know you're good enough was a big one. My biggest struggles are maintaining self-belief and getting started. So what would you say to people who just say, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. My biggest obstacle is that I don't have enough material for a book or for a blog.
Yeah. I think that the answer to I don't know that I'm good enough is join the crowd. Welcome to being a writer. I mean, most writers I know are plagued with self-doubt and insecurity, and wondering if you're good enough is the biggest struggle. I struggle with that. I think the thing that we need to remember, though, is if I'm waiting to not feel afraid, or if I'm waiting to feel worthy or good enough before I can take action, I might be waiting a long time. The thing that I learned from writing The Art of Work and interviewing all these people and talking to you about your story and talking to other people about their stories, the people who created a meaningful life and found their life's work did it afraid. They didn't wait to not feel afraid or wait to feel good enough or competent enough. They did it. And courage is something that tends to come with action. You do stuff, you overcome something that you're not sure that you can overcome, and then afterwards you feel a little bit more competent, a little bit more confident until the next challenge approaches you. But life is that way. I mean, you're constantly, hopefully, doing things that scare you. I think the challenge is not to wait until you feel good enough, but to act in spite of that fear and that self-doubt. That's the only way that you get better. I'm not saying you stay stuck feeling, bad about your work. I am saying that the only way for you to stop feeling that way is to act even when you feel that way. And as you do that again and again and again, confidence tends to build. But I think a lot of writers, frankly, are looking around for somebody to pat them on the back and to say, you're great, you're special. And you don't get that without working really hard to do that. Your challenge is to get to work right now in spite of how incompetent you might feel, and realize that the only thing that's going to close that gap is action, practice. So I don't want to, be mean about it, but use that feeling to propel you into action so that you can get to work and get better.
So if you're scared to write, the only way to write is to write scared to start with.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's get very practical.
Right.
Very common question. Publisher or self-publish?
The answer really is both. I do not put all my eggs in one basket. I mentioned on the webinar, my first self-published book made me $50,000. My next traditionally published book made me $6,000. And yet I'm glad I did both. The trade book helped me reach twice as many people as a self-published book. And there's value to that for me. I mean, everybody has different approaches to, why they publish. I'm a fan of what's called the hybrid model, where you have, your own business, or you've got, you're self-publishing on the side, which is basically running your own business. But, don't overlook the importance of an opportunity to publish with the right publisher and, get a good advance or get your book in front of a lot of people. And that can generate, even now, it can generate a lot more attention to your work than self-publishing. Not always. I mean, I'm still surprised by this. Not always. But this idea that it's either or is misguided. It's really both and. And my recommendation is don't assume that you have a choice when you don't. Don't go, I'm not sure about self-publishing or traditional publishing. If you're just sitting on your butt thinking about writing a book, you're just stalling. I mean, really, it needs to be, do I publish or not? And the answer is publish. Publish something. And if publishers are knocking down your doors, or if agents are knocking down your door, then that's really a choice. If not, then I'm a big fan of self-publishing first, earning the attention of a publisher, and then you've got options because you know what you can do on your own. I knew what I could do on my own when I self-published a book and we sold 10,000 copies. And then a publisher came to me and said, hey, we want to work with you. I knew what I could do on my own, so if it didn't work out, I could always go back to doing it my way. And that's still an option for me. I think the only way to know which is right for you is to try both. And it is so easy to self-publish an ebook. And it used to be that if you self-publish, then that hurt you down the line if you wanted to traditionally publish. That's not true anymore. I have a friend who self-published for years, a couple of books, and just got a multi-six-figure book contract from a traditional publisher. It helped him because it showed that he had an audience that was willing to buy his books, and they weren't buying a ton of them. I mean, it was a really great deal, and it's because he self-published first. So my advice is publish. Do it somehow, some way. Don't rush it, but do it soon.
So whether self-publish or publisher, the key word is publish.
That's right.
Terrible. I told you I don't do live math. I can't even do live counting. So 5 more questions, and I'm going to sum this up. I have multiple questions all in the same category, and I'm going to sum them up as this. How do I make money now as a writer? Not a book down the road, not products down the road. How do I make money, whether it be freelance or magazines, whatever? How do I make money now as a writer?
Yep, that's a great question. The answer really is freelance. It's writing copy for marketing copy for websites or businesses. It's doing piecework, writing op-eds or short pieces for publications that pay. I have a friend who writes articles for online blogs, and he makes anywhere from $500 to $100 per article, and they're short. The short articles, they take him an hour to write, so he's making did I say $500? $50 to $100 an hour. He's making, $50 an hour. I mean, that's a really great rate. And my friend Carol Tice here's a great free resource for you. She has a website called makealivingwriting.com, and they have just a ton of resources there about freelance opportunities. We actually talk a lot about this in Tribe Writers, what you can do now to get your writing out there. And this is how I got started. I started writing for magazines and online publications, making a couple $100 per article. And you can make a lot more than that. You can make thousands of dollars per articles for, really big magazines. But you can make a decent living just, writing here, there, $200, $300, $400 per article, $50 per, blog post. If you can turn that stuff out, there are more than enough opportunities. What you need, though, is you need a website where you've got a portfolio. And that's why guest posting is a great way to begin. If you don't have a portfolio, just put up a bunch of, write for your friends' websites and use that initially, and then use that to get the next gig, and then put that on your portfolio and use, the next gig to get the next gig, and so on and so forth. But in order to do that, you're going to have to learn how to pitch. You're going to have to learn how to reach out to editors, understand the publication, know that they pay something, and then find a way to add value to their audience. And, I started generating, initially a few $100s a month, which was a big deal to me. And then it just kind of grew and grew from there to thousands of dollars per month, just writing for other publications. So it can be a great way to get started. And you can do that this month. You could start making money doing that.
Yeah, it is very, very possible. This is not you have to wait 5 years type thing. So another very common question was, and I'm going to sum it up in a general question, is what advice in both the platform building side and in the writing side would you have for fiction writers?
Yeah, fiction is a little bit different. And I always tell people I'm not a fiction writer, but one of the things that we've done with our community online, I'm talking about Tribe Writers, is we have thousands of fiction writers, and when we've created a community around that. I say it this way. Basically the principles are fairly universal because a reader is not thinking, too much about what genre you're in. Obviously, the basic, general reader understands the difference between fiction and nonfiction and might prefer novels to biographies. But at the end of the day, a reader just wants to read a book or an article and feel good. They want to be entertained. They want to be educated. They want to be inspired. They have some sort of internal or external problem, and you're going to solve that. I know creative writers don't always think that they're solving problems, but they totally are. I mean, you're solving that problem of I feel lonely, or I don't understand, what my life means right now, and I need a good story to get lost in, or I'm just bored. I mean, those are all real, legitimate problems that you help solve. The question is, how do I take my writing, which is about these fantasy worlds or these stories that aren't quote unquote true, and how do I connect it with an audience? There's lots of different ways to do that. I'll share with you a few ways to do that, but I mean, really the different platform personalities we talk about kind of go in depth on that. One way to do it is to build your platform talking about what it means to be a writer. Like you talk about the life of a writer, okay? So, and the lessons that you're learning as a writer. So you have a nonfiction blog talking about your life as a writer, and then you refer to your fiction or creative work. What's her face? Elizabeth Gilbert does this. She has a huge following, especially on Facebook, and she's just writing about her life. She writes memoir and novels, and sort of some like investigative journalism stuff. But she, I think at her core is a creative writer, and she's writing about the life of a writer. And I know lots of fiction authors who do that. Another way to do it is to make your platform about your work, and to share excerpts from stuff that you're working on, the lessons that you're learning. You can share bonuses and behind the scenes content on your blog. You can do a lot. Now, I think the difference between being a fiction writer and a nonfiction writer is a fiction writer can get away with writing a lot more books and just communicating their ideas through the books, and a lot less on their platform. But you still need the platform to support the books. But I think people tend to find fiction writers through their books, and then they connect with their platform, and then they stay in touch with the author as they release new work. With a nonfiction writer, it's almost the opposite. Like you earn trust through a blog or through the work that you're doing, connecting people with your ideas, and then eventually you publish a book and people want to buy it. And with fiction, in many cases, it's reversed. But the bottom line, the basic principles are: get people on an email list, stay in touch with them, be generous with them, use that generosity to reward their attention, and then get that to get people talking about you so that you can get introduced to new people. The principles are still the same. The application will vary a little bit, and I certainly admit that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the other awesome questions we got from multiple people is, have this vision of you, Jeff. You've got like your sweatband on and your leg warmers, and you're like doing jumping jacks before you write. I know that works. You're listening to some 80s music, but aside of that, like, how do you describe that, like the 5 to 10 minutes before you sit down to write, and what you're doing to get yourself in the right mindset to write?
Yeah. So the question is, how do you get in the right mindset to write? What do you do before you write?
Yeah.
Nothing special. I mean, I used to do like the candle thing and the coffee and get the lights dimmed in the right way. I get in a mindset to write by writing, you know?
Nice.
I get in an attitude to work out by going to the gym, you know? Like this is why warming up is so important. You know, I used to run cross country very poorly in college, but the warm up was so important. You would run for because it's cross country, you'd run for like half a mile and then you'd stretch and then you'd go, okay, I'm ready. I think writing is that way too. You get warmed up by doing it and then you get into the groove. A lot of times we don't give ourselves enough time to do that. I recommend starting with 30 minutes a day to get it, to just start the habit. But once you do that, I mean, my deepest times of writing, are typically 2 to 3 hours long. I can't always manage that. That's a lot. But when I'm working on a book, I will fight for that time because it's important, because there's certain things that I don't get into until after, the first 30, sometimes 45 minutes. But you get into the mindset by practicing every day. Think about it. If you're not writing a lot, think about it as being obese. And I've got to get into shape. I got to get my mind into writing shape. I got to get my fingers into writing shape. I got to get my, my soul, my innermost being into readiness so that I can start writing. And I do think that if you do that enough, if you practice enough, there's a certain amount of effortlessness that happens. I don't want to say it's not easiness, but it becomes effortless to start, in the sense that you can sit down and you can turn that thing on like a light switch. I'm not saying every time I sit down to write it's easy, but the more I did it, by the end of that year of practicing, I no longer had to fight to write 500 words. It became easier. It became a lot easier and more effortless to do it. It's still hard. It's still difficult at times. I don't want to say that writing ever becomes easy, but a lot of the effort that it takes to initiate it over time and after practice, that wanes. I mean, that goes away, or at least lessens or decreases for me. And it's really just about practice. But most things, you get into the mindset not by thinking about it or psyching yourself out. You get into the mindset by doing it.
Yeah. So I had a great question from Cherie and Shelley and Nicole, all asked very similar questions. And it kind of ties into what we just talked about, but about the actual workflow. And one of them wrote, I forget which one, basically said, I have a full-time job. And so this is all in the context of also having a full-time job. And she said, ergo, I only have 2 to 3 hours a day to write. And my first reaction was, that's a lot of time.
Yeah, right. Right.
And I do want to dispel the myth before you answer the question of workflow, that when you are a full-time writer, it is not sitting around all day in your bathrobe sipping chai tea and just ruminating, as John Acuff often says, thinking of new adjectives. It's about, you're running a business.
Yeah. Hey, you cut out for a second.
Oh, what is the workflow like for you when you had a full-time job? Go back to that time.
Mm-hmm. I'll just tell you what it was like. I used to stay up till midnight watching TV, and then wake up groggy and rush off to work, and always feel like I was in this constant state of hurriedness. And I liked my job and I liked my life, but I didn't love it, and I felt like there was something that was missing, and I felt like, how am I going to find time to do this? And I just looked for margin, and the easiest place for me to cut time was to stop watching, shows till midnight. That wasn't bad time. It's not bad to watch TV. I just realized nothing came out of it. It wasn't fruitful. It didn't produce anything. I was just tired, and groggy the next day. So I started going to bed at 10 a.m. 10 p.m. started going to bed at 10 p.m. I started going to bed at 10 at night in the evening. And then I started waking up at about 5 a.m. Sometimes when I was lagging, I'd get up at 6. And then I didn't have to be at work until 9. So there were days when I would spend 2 hours writing. That wasn't most days. Most days I'd get up, I'd make some coffee, sometimes go for a jog, and then start, I'd kind of go through my morning routine at 5, eat a little bit of breakfast, workout, drink some coffee, shower. And then I'd start writing around 6 or 6:30. And I'd write for about an hour, sometimes less, sometimes more. And no matter no matter how good it was, I was happy to have written for that day. And for me, I was writing stuff primarily for my blog. I was writing it for publication. So it forced me to bring my A game. because somebody was going to read it soon. Maybe just two somebodies, but somebody. And so I would write it in the morning, and then I'd come home after work, and I'd spend time with my wife, and we'd watch some TV, or we'd hang out or watch a movie, and then I would go to bed. I'd go to bed at 10, sometimes 10:30, definitely before 11, and then I'd get up at 5 or 6 in the next morning and do it all over again. And then when I'd get up the next morning, first thing I would do is I'd edit that piece that I wrote the previous day. I'd publish it on my blog, and then I start writing the thing for tomorrow. And just having that buffer throughout the day gave me time. I like having times of not writing where I'm thinking about it. Ernest Hemingway talked about in A Movable Feast how he always stopped writing. He's always stopped his writing time before he felt like he was done, because it gave him something to work on the next day. And he believed in always having, always having something in the well. You don't want to completely empty the well. And then have to, fill it up again the next day, because you'll sit around, thinking of new adjectives. You'll sit around thinking about all these, what's a good idea to share, and I like that idea of working on something, then stopping, then thinking about it all day long, and when you come back to it, you're going to do something different with it than feeling the stress of, I got to get this out right now, and just having at least for a blog post, just having a buffer of 12, 24 hours in between gives you some distance from the piece and gives you some time to think about it. And that's how I did it. I tried to do it at lunch. I tried to do it at breaks or at other times of the day, even at night, and it never worked. What worked for me was getting up early. Nobody else was up at 5 a.m. and I wasn't gonna go back to sleep. I didn't give myself that out. I was like, well, what else am I gonna do? I'm gonna write. And then I did that enough times that I started waking up without an alarm clock, going, I gotta write. And that was my first thing that I did.
That's awesome. So this is all about how to be a full-time writer, and that's what you are doing now. And I think we've dispelled the myth of what that actually looks like. But since this is the ultimate goal for anybody who's listening to this Q&A and who attended this webinar and who's going to, hopefully take advantage of these bundles that we've put together, take us through a day in the life of Jeff Goins now. What does it look like now that you've made the shift to being a full-time writer?
I hate this question because it's not that interesting of an answer. It's not. It's not that different. Probably,
but a lot of people ask.
I know. Okay, so here's what my day looks like. I don't get up at 5 a.m. anymore because I have a 3-year-old son. I usually get up with him around 7, sometimes 7:30. When I'm being good, I get up early, but I haven't been good lately. I've slept in. I get up with him. We play swords or lightsabers or your long weapon of choice. Then when he's hungry, within the first hour of getting up, we have breakfast. Sometimes we'll watch cartoons. Other times we'll just keep playing. And then my wife comes downstairs, and she usually gets to sleep in. And she works so hard during the day that I love. I love that she gets to do that. And then I go to work, sometime in the morning, sometime, 9, 9:30, 10. Depends on the season, what's going on, but usually I go to my office, which is at another place. For the longest time, it was in a part of my house, but eventually it was just hard to work at home, and I was kind of interfering with what they were doing every day. So I, saved up some money and found a cheap place to rent and love having a separate place to work and write. And I go here and I write and I work. And then when I leave work at work usually. Usually in the mornings I'm catching up on stuff, email, Facebook. I run a small business, and I have a small team of people that work with me, helping us manage, things like, we have people that go through our different courses. There's just, when you're working with thousands and thousands of people, trying to help them grow as writers, grow in their calling, it is a team effort to give people the support that they need. So I kind of connect with everybody depending on whatever the project of the day is. Usually go to lunch at a coffee shop that's just walking distance from where I work. And then in the afternoon, that tends to be my most productive time these days, from like 1 to 3. Right now, a lot of that time is being filled with doing interviews for the book. But really from 1 to 3, sometimes 4, that's when I'll write. That's when I'll work on blog posts, or I'll work on a new creative project, or work on a podcast or something. And a lot of times I'll just go sit. I have a chair in my office. I'll just go sit, close my laptop. I'll just go sit and think for a while. And that's a really productive thing it doesn't feel productive at the time, but it's really productive to do. And then, I go home usually around 5 o'clock, and there are days when, my wife has vocal lessons. I'll go home early and she goes to that, or days when I'll, take off and go hang out with my son. But to my surprise, I like having a schedule. I like having kind of, starting work around 9 or 10 and ending work around, 5. And having kind of these consistent things where I gotta show up for it. It makes it. I like the flexibility of working for myself and being able to take off and having the freedom to do that. But I also like the consistency of, I get up every day and I go to work. I don't have to think about writing. It's just something that I do every day. And the other thing I would say, Matt, and one of the reasons why it's a hard question for me to answer, is every day is different. What I tend to do is batch things. So Monday is all about correspondence. Typically there's a theme. Tuesday is often about interviews. Wednesday is all about in-person meetings. So if somebody wants to meet with me for coffee, Wednesday is the best day to do that. And we book up the calendar, typically months in advance. But I'll say yes to, just about anybody who wants to come out to Franklin, Tennessee and meet for me with coffee if they're willing to, wait and get on the schedule and it's on a Wednesday. And then Thursdays are usually kind of deep project days, or if I'm working on a book, I'm writing usually, a little bit every day on it, but then I might spend the whole day or half a day working on that. And then, Fridays are kind of like organizational stuff, so for the business, I'm going, okay, what are we working on? What aren't we working on? What needs to be moved? It's kind of leadership days. And typically Mondays and Fridays, I don't book anything, so that if my family wants to go on a trip or we want to go somewhere for the weekend, I don't have to worry about clearing my schedule. Those days are always clear. But if they're open, I usually do correspondence on Mondays and kind of organizational stuff on Friday. That's a very loose thing, and there are different seasons and stuff. But I like batching things, around days as opposed to doing this at this time every day.
Well, for someone who thinks that that's incredibly boring and they don't like talking about it, I actually just took notes. So I actually learned some stuff from you on that one. Funny. So thank you so much. Everyone, I just thank you so much for being a part of the training today, and thank you to Jeff, for his generosity. I mean, more than 2 hours of just action-packed content and questions. We tried to get to all the questions, but if we didn't get to your questions today, again, tweet Jeff and I, or one or both of us, at Jeff Goins or at Matt McWilliams 2, and we will get to those questions. I want to stop for a second, congratulate, I'm hoping I don't butcher the first name here, Jana K. Called.
Hey, say that again. You cut out for 1 second. Jana K.
Jana K won the highest level that we have. It's worth like $2,000. What is that called? Gosh, my brain's not all there.
What is that called? The Art of Work Master.
Master.
You are a master.
She's a master. We couldn't remember what to call her, but yeah. So congratulations, Jana, for winning. And if you feel like you're called to be a full-time writer, obviously you wouldn't be listening to this. You wouldn't have attended an hour and a half long webinar if you weren't. But you don't know the next steps. And this bundle that we just gave to Jana, or we just gave to the other guy whose name also escapes me, from Edinburgh, Scotland. This bundle is probably for you. Now, if you're a beginner, then the lower bundle is for you, and that's going to be perfect to get you started as a part of this bundle. Using the middle one as an example, you're going to get the Art of Work course, the Intentional Blogging course, and Jeff's Tribe Writers course, all when they're bundled together at a fraction of the price. Again, so this is only available right now, and it's available only to people who either purchased the book or attended the webinar. So if you're listening to this right now, this is only available to you. So plus you can take advantage of the early bird pricing that we have going on right now through Sunday, April 26th. After that, the price of each bundle goes up. And then, like I said, soon after that, a few days after that, this bundle is going to go away entirely. So it's open only for a limited time. And there's other options. If that middle bundle is not right for you, you can scale down or scale up. And we mentioned it earlier, but that master level, it even allows you personal one-on-one coaching with Jeff, which he rarely makes available to the public. So the URL for that is artofworkbook.com. @goins.com/writer. Go check that out. And Jeff, thank you so much for just being you, being awesome, and sharing about your journey to becoming a full-time writer.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being a part of this, and hopefully it was helpful. We'd love to have you in one of the courses no matter what. Thank you so much for being a part of the community, and thanks for being a part of everything that we're doing with The Art of Work. There's more exciting stuff to share soon, and we'll be sending that your way. Thanks, and have a great day.